Hey, if you don't know me, I'm Sam Candles. And if you do know me, you know that I like Sonic the Hedgehog. And I'm currently trying to make a video about every single Sonic game ever released. Oh, no. Eventually. At the current rate I'm going after these videos, this will take me about 20 years. Jeez, I hope I start going faster, like Sonic does. Anyway, you'd think since the last video I did was about the first game, that I'd now move on to Sonic 2, right? If you nodded your head yes to that, I am glad to inform you that you're a little stupid, dumb idiot, because today's video is actually about Sonic 1. Again! In case you couldn't already tell, Sonic was a big deal for Sega. So much of a big deal that he couldn't be limited to just their 16-bit console. So Ancient, a brand new studio formed by the composer that would later go on to make the Streets of Rage 2 soundtrack, started work on an 8-bit version of Sonic 1. The Master System version of Sonic 1 is a little bit more simple than the original. There's not much in the way of physics gameplay, there's no half-pipes or loop-de-loops. Possibly as a result, Sonic also feels a little bit tighter than he does in Sonic 1 during basic platforming. The ring mechanic is also, sadly, simplified by not letting you pick any back up. But ultimately, a lot of the core of Sonic is here. You can spin attack to take out enemies, you can run faster by just building up more speed, and you can roll down slopes. Overall, it's still a pretty complete Sonic experience on hardware that's barely half as powerful. I just think that's pretty neat. But either way, with less complex gameplay, the weight is put on the stages, even more so than Sonic 1. So, does this game live up to what it sets out to do? Is it a good Sonic game? Is it even a good platformer? Yes. Well, no. It's complicated. Watch the video. The first impression I get when I start at Green Hill is just, damn, this game actually looks good? It's impressive how pretty the visuals are in this Master System game. I would say it even holds up well compared to the Genesis version. Anyway, we're in Green Hill. This stage is pretty similar to the Genesis version at first glance, but it has some major differences. There's no loop-de-loops, half-pipes, or smooth hills. Instead, we have an approximation of that with large slanted ground and these lips that will launch you into the air. Even though it's obviously very compromised, the stage still has a pretty good sense of momentum to it, and it just feels like Green Hill Zone should. I still think overall it's a bit weaker than the Genesis version of this level, but the original version of Green Hill is pretty hard to beat. 8-bit Green Hill is still pretty wonderful, and I love some of the variations on the original stage, like having sections of actual water in this underground maze thing. I'd say the one thing that's rough here is the boss fight. He just kind of flies around, and you also get no rings at all. I sure hope that's not going to be a pattern for the entire game. Bridge Zone is Green Hill again, at least aesthetically. On the gameplay side, Bridge Zone is much more focused on completely standard platforming instead of trying to approximate stuff from the 16-bit version of the game. It's a pretty standard stage, with the difficulty being ramped up a bit from the last one. In this stage, I remembered that you don't actually get Chaos Emeralds from the special stages in this game, and they're just kind of sitting around. More on that later. Anyway, the second act is an auto-scroller, and a weak one at that. I found that usually I would entirely outrun the auto-scroll and just wait for it to catch up with me. This is also the stage where the game's awful slowdown issue starts to rear its ugly head a bit more. It's pretty rough. But then you get to fight another boss. It's kind of bad again. Don't really have much to say. But still, overall, despite being less Sonic-y and what I would describe as a tolerable auto-scrolling segment, this level is pretty good. And it's not nearly as much of a pace breaker as Marble Zone is. And also, the music is just fantastic. Moving on. Another grass level? I feel like there's a theme here. Anyways, I really like Jungle Zone. This is one of the prettiest stages in the game. I love the use of color here. All the bright red and purple stand out so well against the dark green. Visuals are really this game's strong suit, honestly. In any case, the actual stage is really fun too. The layout is generally engaging, and there's just a decent amount of gimmicks and visual variety to keep it interesting throughout the whole thing. Just a really solid level. I would say the only weak point is that the camera likes to make it hard to see the next platform you're going to jump to sometimes, but still, pretty good. That is, if you're talking about Act 1. Act 2 is one of the worst stages in this game. This act is a completely vertical level where the camera can only go up, and the bottom of the screen becomes a death pit. This leads to some of the worst deaths in the game. You'll jump up, slip off the platform, and die in the exact spot where you were able to stand half a second ago. You can even die when you can see a platform. That's right there. And whose idea was it to put this spring here? You might as well stand outside my house with a bat. I honestly wouldn't blame you if you just quit right here. And despite that, I still kind of love Jungle Zone. It makes such a strong first impression that it's pretty hard to hate. The boss here is also almost kinda clever, but it's still really frustrating having no rings and dying in one hit. Oh well. Oh look, the map screen is different. Oh god, oh fuck. It's back. My worst nightmares have a name, and their name is Labyrinth Zone. This version of the stage somehow manages to be worse than the Genesis version, and honestly makes it look like a highlight in comparison. The underwater physics are significantly slower, there's way less out of water sections, and somehow it has even less gameplay variety. The only saving grace here is that once again, it's pretty nice looking. Maybe even nicer looking than the Genesis version, but that doesn't save the stage from being a complete disaster. The boss sucks too. Shocker. I really don't know how the game is going to win back my... By the way, this game still has special stages, and they're pretty fun. They're basically just big bouncy castles where you get extra lives, and you get there by the goalpost landing on a specific emblem, which actually gives that spinning animation a gameplay purpose, and that's neat. This version of Scrap Brain is just pretty damn cool. Running and rolling around, dodging flamethrowers and electricity while this Mega Man-ass music plays in the background is way too cool for this dinky 8-bit Sonic game. I love this stage. Once again, until Act 2. See a pattern here? Act 2 starts out similarly, but it ends up being a huge maze full of doors and alternating pathways. I have no idea how I beat this act the first time, because I was completely lost on this playthrough. It's another sudden pace breaker in a game full of them, but it's still not the worst. Unlike the other rougher stages here, once you learn it, you can actually play it pretty fast. The boss fight here is also a maze, just a bunch of doors. A shorter maze, but still a bit of a maze nonetheless. It probably doesn't take that long. I'm stupid and I didn't realize how these doors worked for a good 6 minutes. Anyways, once you're past that, you reach Eggman, who doesn't fight you? And after Scrap Brain, we're met with a surprise final zone. Skybase is crazy ambitious for this game. You start out in a haphazardly constructed base shrouded in these dark clouds of pollution, lightning periodically going off that acts both as a mood setter and an obstacle. Then you get to Act 2, and the music changes as you infiltrate Eggman's airship while he fires a rain of laser bullets on you. My point is that it's just really goddamn cool. I love Skybase. It's a perfect closer to Sonic 1, and it really completes this nature versus industrialization theming that defines early Sonic world building. Oh yeah, there's also a boss here, and it sucks. It's just a worse version of the Sonic 1 final boss. Anyhow, I beat it, and after a really cute credit sequence, I beat the entire game. So, overall, Sonic 1 on the Master System is kind of a weird one. I went into this game fully expecting to like it more than the proper 16-bit version, but it ended up being a lot more complicated than that. It has a lot going for it. The visuals are charming, the themes of environmentalism are shown off way better than the other version, and simple things like the world map screens or this little animation of Sonic just add a little bit more charm that the real Sonic one should have had too. But on the other hand, the highs aren't nearly as high in this game, and the lows are way lower. It feels like nearly every other act had to have some sort of pace killer gimmick. Because of this, it ends up feeling just as mixed as the original Sonic one, but in a more lopsided way. Instead of a general feeling of not being fast enough, it ends up feeling like the worst elements of all of Sonic 1 was condensed into a few specific acts. So, this game is probably worse than the 16-bit version, but I just cannot hate it. This game is just cute. The visuals are cute, the music is cute, the entire concept of this little Sonic 1 remake is just cute. Despite some deeply flawed levels, I would still recommend playing this game at least with save states if you're a fan of classic Sonic. As a small aside, did you know there's a fan-made remaster of this game called Sonic SMS Remake? It adds back a lot of classic Sonic features that are missing from the game, like the spin and drop dashes, some new characters, and even 8-bit versions of the original Sonic 1 stages. I wouldn't recommend it over the real game from a historical perspective, but if you're just frustrated by the slowdown and the weird changes in the original, I would say go for it. Anyways, this video was just my opinion. What do you think about this game? Have you played it? And more importantly, have you subscribed? I think you should. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!